What if a single whispered word from a 7-year-old could send Buckingham Palace into a state of near panic? What if the youngest member of the royal family, Prince Louis, unknowingly triggered one of the most extraordinary security responses in modern history? Today we're taking you behind the closed doors of the monarchy to reveal what happened that spring afternoon, a story so secretive it has been buried in archives for decades, known only to a handful of palace insiders. By the end of this video, you'll understand why a single innocent remark turned a ceremonial appearance into a potential crisis. In the grand tapestry of royal appearances, few moments have carried the quiet weight of significance as this one with Prince Louis, the youngest of the royal children who was just 7 years old at the time. There he stood, full of life and mischief, waving enthusiastically and grinning alongside his older siblings, Princess Charlotte, age 9, and Prince George, age 11, a living portrait of innocence, charm, and the unfiltered joy of childhood. On the surface, it was meant to be a simple, heartwarming display of familial unity, a fleeting glimpse of youthful delight set against the backdrop of centuries-old tradition and ceremonial pageantry. Buckingham Palace estimates that events of this kind attract upwards of 10,000 spectators, and on this particular spring afternoon, a crowd of nearly 12,000 well-wishers had gathered, their flags waving in unison, creating a kaleidoscope of red, white, and blue across the forecourt. Every detail had been meticulously orchestrated: the perfectly composed family, the carefully curated public image, the watchful gaze of over 150 accredited photographers and members of the press, and the highly trained security personnel, including a team of 30 palace guards deployed along the perimeter. Yet what should have unfolded as a routine ceremonial occasion soon teetered on the edge of chaos, ignited by a single, unexpected remark from the youngest prince. Gasps spread like ripples across the crowd. Behind the gilded doors of the palace, centuries-old protocols were set into motion, quietly awakening as palace guards and advisors, some with over 20 years of service, grappled with the weight and meaning of the words spoken by this small, seemingly innocuous child. What could provoke such an immediate and profound reaction? What words from a mere 7-year-old could send Buckingham Palace into heightened alert? The answer, as it would soon become clear, was far more complex and far more perilous than anyone in the audience could have imagined. It all began on a crisp, clear spring afternoon, the kind that marks the transition from winter austerity to the soft vibrancy of May in London, with temperatures hovering around 15 degrees C, 59 degrees F, and a gentle breeze carrying the scent of freshly cut grass from the palace gardens. Enthusiastic crowds, waving flags and beaming with anticipation, lined the palace grounds for what was expected to be an ordinary public engagement. Princess Charlotte radiated poise and elegance, her every gesture deliberate and graceful, while Prince George stood perfectly composed, a model of restraint and decorum embodying the expected royal bearing at such events. And Prince Louis, ever lively, full of energy, bounced on his heels, waving with uncontainable enthusiasm to the crowd. For a brief, flawless moment, the scene was perfection itself. Applause thundered through the air, flashes illuminated their smiling faces, and the royal family seemed to embody serenity, order, and timeless poise. The public spectacle was not just ceremonial, it was a carefully measured demonstration of monarchy in motion. Analysts note that these appearances are strategically timed to boost public sentiment, often coinciding with charitable campaigns, diplomatic events, or seasonal celebrations. On average, Buckingham Palace reports that a single appearance like this can generate upwards of 1,500 media articles, millions of social media impressions, and hundreds of thousands of television viewers worldwide. In that fleeting moment, as Louis waved to the crowd and Charlotte and George maintained their composed presence, the family presented not just themselves, but the image of a monarchy that had weathered over 1,000 years of history, resilient, steadfast, and meticulously curated for the public eye. But the perfection was fragile. As the royal procession continued across the forecourt and along the palace frontage, an area typically secured by multiple layers of protection, including uniformed guards, plainclothes officers, and surveillance teams, something unusual began to draw attention. Among the approximately 10,000 to 12,000 spectators gathered outside, only a few noticed it at first. Prince Louis, the youngest and most animated of the royal children, appeared more focused than usual, his attention drifting away from the crowd and toward the perimeter line where palace guards stood at fixed intervals, often no more than 10 to 15 meters apart. Unlike his usual playful demeanor, Louis moved with quiet intention, breaking slightly from his assigned position, a rare occurrence during such tightly managed appearances. He approached one of the guards. Royal aides are trained to maintain constant visual tracking of the children, and even a deviation of a few steps can trigger subtle corrective movements. Yet this moment happened quickly. Leaning forward, Louis whispered something directly to the guard. What followed was immediate and measurable. The guard, trained under strict ceremonial discipline where even facial expressions are controlled, reacted in a way that did not go unnoticed by those trained to observe. His posture locked, his shoulders squared more rigidly than before, and his eyes shifted sharply toward the nearest supervisory aide. Within seconds, typically no more than 3 to 5, this non-verbal cue was picked up by adjacent personnel. Across the perimeter, other guards initiated silent communication protocols. Members of the Royal Protection Unit, often drawn from elite branches such as the Metropolitan Police's Royalty and Specialist Protection Command, began using encrypted radio devices. These communications, usually reserved for coordination or threat-level adjustments, increased in frequency. Within approximately 2 minutes, additional personnel were repositioned. Surveillance coverage intensified, and internal monitoring systems, capable of reviewing real-time and recent footage within seconds, were activated for cross-checking. Despite this rapid escalation, the crowd remained entirely unaware. To them, nothing had changed. The applause continued, flags waved, and hundreds of smartphones captured what still appeared to be a flawless royal moment. This contrast between visible calm and invisible urgency is a hallmark of royal security operations designed specifically to prevent panic while maintaining absolute control. Inside the palace, however, the shift was undeniable. What had been a precisely choreographed public engagement, often planned weeks in advance with second-by-second scheduling, was now entering contingency mode. Princess Catherine, known for her composure in high-pressure situations, responded instantly. With a calm but deliberate gesture, she guided Louis back into position. Such physical cues are standard in royal protocol, used to maintain formation without drawing attention. Yet even within her controlled demeanor, there was a fleeting break, barely perceptible, lasting perhaps a second or two. As her eyes met her son's, it was enough. Across from her, Prince William registered the change immediately. Trained not only as a senior royal but also through his background in military and emergency response environments, his awareness sharpened. The glance they exchanged carried no words, yet conveyed complete understanding. Something was wrong. From that moment, the nature of the event changed entirely. What had been a ceremonial appearance transitioned into a managed withdrawal. Internal coordination teams, often comprising security advisors, communications officers, and senior aides, began executing what is known as a soft extraction protocol. This allows the royal family to exit an event ahead of schedule without alarming the public. The departure, originally set to occur at a fixed time, was advanced by approximately 5 minutes. While this may seem minor in royal scheduling, even a 1-minute deviation is significant and usually tied to operational necessity. The motorcade, already on standby, was quickly reorganized. Additional close protection officers were deployed, and the number of escort vehicles, typically ranging from 3 to 5, was visibly increased. Behind the scenes, security layering intensified. Routes were re-evaluated in real time, communication channels were restricted to essential personnel only, and monitoring teams began reviewing activity logs from the previous hour, standard procedure when an unexpected variable is introduced. Meanwhile, outside the palace gates, the atmosphere remained celebratory. The crowd continued cheering, unaware that just meters away, a quiet but serious security response had been triggered. Cameras kept flashing, capturing smiles and waves, preserving the illusion of normalcy. But within the palace system, one fact had already become clear. This was no longer a routine engagement. A single whispered sentence from a 7-year-old child had activated layers of protocol designed for far more serious scenarios. And whatever had been said, it was enough to shift the entire operation from ceremony to control. What could Louis have said to provoke such a rapid and decisive response? The truth remains classified, never to be disclosed publicly, yet the consequences were immediate and unmistakable. When the 7-year-old prince was discreetly escorted back into the palace, a structure spanning 77,000 square meters and staffed by hundreds of personnel on any given public day, he repeated his words with the same clarity and calm. Those present, including over 30 senior aides, 10 armed palace guards, and members of the Royal Protection Unit (RPU), froze in place. Within seconds, covert signals were transmitted to higher-ranking security officials monitoring the event from the palace's control rooms, a network equipped with encrypted communications, real-time CCTV feeds from over 300 cameras, and rapid response coordination protocols. A soft-spoken assistant, specially trained in child communication and emergency response, knelt beside Louis, her posture careful and deliberate. Such personnel are routinely part of royal child safeguarding teams, whose training includes understanding developmental behavior and eliciting information without escalating stress. Calmly, she asked what he had said. Louis replied without hesitation. The content of his words sent an instantaneous ripple through the room. Princess Catherine, usually composed under immense public and media scrutiny, went visibly pale, her eyes widening with comprehension of the stakes involved. Even veteran security officers, some with more than 20 years of experience protecting members of the royal family and managing sensitive public events, recognized that this was beyond ordinary protocol. Louis's seemingly innocent remark had breached more than decorum. It echoed a statement buried deep within highly classified documents, accessible only to a handful of officials. The palace's internal security threat assessment protocols were triggered immediately. Within seconds, a Tier 3 alert was activated, one step below a full lockdown. For context, Buckingham Palace employs a multi-tiered security system. Tier 1 is routine monitoring. Tier 3 involves activating surveillance redundancies, securing all communication lines, reviewing logs and recordings from the prior 48 hours, and redeploying personnel from less critical duties to high-priority positions. Tier 4, the maximum alert, involves complete lockdown of the premises, including all entry and exit points, and is only ever declared in situations deemed an immediate threat to the sovereign. Within this framework, every piece of intelligence was rapidly reviewed. Surveillance footage covering all public-facing courtyards and interior corridors, communications logs of previous movements, and even historical visitor data from the prior 48 hours. All personnel were directed to maintain radio silence except for essential updates. Contingency plans, normally reserved for potential threats to national security or state visits, were quietly implemented in real time. Meanwhile, the child himself remained blissfully unaware of the chaos his words had unleashed. He was escorted to a private playroom in a restricted wing of the palace, monitored by 2 senior aides and 4 specially trained RPU officers, standard practice when a minor is involved in any incident potentially impacting security. This wing, rarely accessed by anyone outside the palace household, contains multiple observation points, panic protocols, and secure exits to ensure both the child's safety and operational control over the palace. Within minutes, it became clear to palace officials that a single seemingly innocuous statement had triggered a cascade of high-level operational responses. An event that had begun as a ceremonial public appearance, attended by nearly 12,000 spectators and over 150 media personnel, now carried the weight of a potential internal security breach. The palace's most sensitive records, some centuries old and containing information on classified protocols and past contingency measures, had been exposed to immediate scrutiny. The pressing questions loomed. Had Louis unknowingly compromised knowledge that could endanger the monarchy? Could palace security regain control before the situation escalated beyond containment? To uncover the answer, we must examine exactly what Prince Louis said, a phrase so precise that it caused a ripple of immediate alarm throughout Buckingham Palace, disturbing even the most seasoned aides and long-serving staff. The words were not ordinary childlike musings. They echoed language historically reserved for internal briefings of the palace, particularly during the reign of Queen Elizabeth II. One phrase, "they're watching from the walls," had appeared in classified records dating back to the early 1980s. These documents, accessible to fewer than a dozen senior palace officials, were stored under the strictest archival protocols. The files outlined covert surveillance methods, early warning procedures, and risk assessments related to visitors and internal staff movements. For a 7-year-old to utter such a line verbatim in front of palace guards was unprecedented. In response, Catherine moved quickly but deliberately to a concealed chamber within the private apartments. This room, rarely accessed and hidden behind a large armchair in the palace's west wing, had been gifted by Queen Elizabeth herself and was historically used for sensitive consultations. Inside, Catherine uncovered a worn envelope, sealed with cryptic symbols only she and the late Queen had ever been authorized to interpret. The envelope contained handwritten notes and documents detailing the so-called Watching Ones, a term referencing a network of surveillance protocols developed over decades, including both physical observation posts and coded internal communications. These measures were documented in palace logs dating as far back as the 1940s, showing continuity in how the monarchy monitored internal and external threats. Within minutes, the palace escalated security to its Tier 3 alert level, a designation reserved for situations just one step below full lockdown. Tier 3 activation involves the deployment of over 150 security personnel across the palace, including uniformed officers, plainclothes operatives, and specialized Royal Protection Unit teams. Surveillance coverage, usually spanning 300 fixed and mobile cameras across 77,000 square meters of palace grounds, was intensified, with real-time feeds reviewed by multiple monitoring teams. Communication lines were restricted, encrypted, and limited to essential personnel only. Historical activity logs from the previous 48 hours were cross-checked, as is standard procedure when a potential security anomaly is detected. Meanwhile, Prince William, attending a military charity function approximately 5 kilometers from the palace, received an encrypted briefing. The urgency was such that he departed immediately, his exit observed by onlookers and recorded by numerous public cameras, yet none could perceive the underlying tension that had already mobilized dozens of security operatives. Back inside Buckingham Palace, a hum of unease spread through the corridors. Generations of royal family members and senior aides exchanged subtle, knowing glances, recalling decades-old phrases and warnings recorded in the Queen Mother's private correspondences, phrases that had been long dismissed as symbolic or poetic. Prince Louis's words, though seemingly innocuous, mirrored historical correspondence previously sealed in the palace archives. Letters bearing the Queen Mother's crest contained multiple references to the Watching Ones, describing surveillance protocols, threat assessments, and operational contingencies that had guided palace security for over 70 years. A single sentence, carefully redacted from public-facing copies, suddenly gained significance when Louis spoke it aloud. The palace now faced a serious internal question: what had the child truly perceived, and why did it correspond so precisely with these classified records? This incident was no longer a simple lapse in decorum or a casual remark. It was a potential trigger, awakening operational procedures and historical protocols that had been dormant for decades. With over 150 personnel mobilized, encrypted communications active, and surveillance feeds intensively monitored, Buckingham Palace was confronting a scenario that could expose secrets the royal family had guarded for generations. The implications were staggering. The monarchy faced the unsettling possibility that a 7-year-old child had unintentionally revealed knowledge of sensitive operational history, knowledge that could never be publicly acknowledged without consequence. History demonstrates that secrets within Buckingham Palace rarely remain hidden indefinitely. The palace itself spans 77,000 square meters, houses over 775 rooms, including 19 staterooms and 78 bathrooms, and is monitored 24/7 by a combination of more than 300 CCTV cameras and dozens of Royal Protection Unit officers. Operational protocols are layered. Tiered alert systems, encrypted communications, and immediate deployment contingencies ensure that even minor anomalies are detected and managed swiftly. Over the decades, archives from the Queen Mother, Queen Elizabeth II, and successive private offices have revealed that information considered dormant often resurfaces, sometimes decades later, reshaping both public perception and internal security procedures. The pressing question now is, what comes next? Could the events triggered by Prince Louis at only 7 years old mark one of the most extraordinary royal revelations of modern times? Historical precedent shows that phrases or incidents dismissed at one point, like cryptic references in Queen Mother letters, sealed operational notes in restricted archives, or internal security communications, can suddenly gain relevance, necessitating immediate operational reassessment. In this case, over 150 security personnel were rapidly deployed across palace grounds, encrypted lines activated, and monitoring of the royal apartments intensified. The consequences of his words have already reverberated across multiple layers of palace security and archival oversight. 4T. The intrigue continues. If you've followed this story so far, now is the time to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the next chapter of this unfolding saga could reveal secrets that have been protected for decades. Consider the scale. Buckingham Palace alone employs hundreds of staff to maintain operations daily, manages thousands of visitors, and preserves archives containing centuries of records. Yet even within this tightly controlled environment, the words of a single child triggered immediate high-level responses. Share your thoughts. Do you believe Prince Louis truly knew something extraordinary, drawn perhaps from family lore, whispered traditions, or historical protocols? Or was this a remarkable coincidence, amplified by the palace's complex security apparatus? The story is far from over. With operational protocols, historical archives, and centuries of guarded secrets interwoven, the events surrounding this single afternoon at Buckingham Palace may yet reveal a chapter of royal history previously thought untouchable. History shows that secrets within Buckingham Palace rarely stay hidden forever. Could this incident mark one of the most extraordinary revelations in modern royal history? Only time will tell. If you followed this far, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the next chapter in this saga could reveal secrets that have been buried for decades. Do you think Prince Louis truly knew something extraordinary, or was this a remarkable coincidence? Comment below with your theory. The story is far from over, and the palace's secrets may be deeper and more complex than you ever imagined.